January. First day of January, feast of the circumcision of our Lord, seventh day of Christmas. Perkin wants me to teach him to read. He dreams of being a scholar, but most likely will just be a goat boy who can read. My Latin is none so good. I wish Edward were here to help. But Edward is not here, and Robert and Thomas cannot read or write. Robert can barely talk. Too bad Perkin doesn't want to learn how to skewer an enemy on a sword or tumble a laundress in the barn. Second day of January, feast of St. Abel the Patriarch, son of Adam killed by his brother Cain, eighth day of Christmas. New snow today. We had a snowball fight and everyone joined in. Even my lady mother was giddy and gay, laughing and blushing and acting much like a girl, although she must be over 30. William Stewart grew smitten and made flowery speeches to her, but we put snow down his pants to cool his passion. Third day of January, feast of St. Genevieve, who through fasting and praying kept Attila the Hun from Paris. Ninth day of Christmas. My head aches from the cold, the smoke, and the noise of too many people drinking too much ale. At supper, grown angry with the puppies nipping at my food, I swept them off the table onto the floor. Later, in remorse, I smuggled them all into my bed for the night. Good thing Morwenna sleeps heavy and never knows what she has been sleeping with until morning. Fourth day of January, feast of Saints Aquilinus, Geminus, Eugenius, Marcianus, Quinctus, Theodotus, and Tryphon, a band of martyrs put to death in Africa by the king of the Vandals. 10th day of Christmas. The eels in their tub in the kitchen froze last night, so we had an eel feast for dinner and eel pie for supper. I fear more eels with our breakfast bread and ale tomorrow. 5th day of January, feast of St. Simeon Stylites, who lived for 37 years atop a pillar, praising God. 11th day of Christmas. I will not be sorry to see the Christmas days end, for I have been spending excessive time curing other people's alehead, putrid stomach, and various wounds, cuts, and bruises sustained in drunken fights. I have near run out of mustard seed and boiled snake. 6th day of January, feast of the Epiphany, 12th day of Christmas. The end of Christmas. Mayhap I will soon have my chamber and my bed to share with only the usual residents. At dinner today, my mother found the bean in her 12th cake and chose my father to be king. I found the pea and was queen. My father and I had to sit next to each other for the mumming and lead the dancing and eat together at supper. I could hardly swallow from being so near the beast for so long. I wish I'd just eaten the pea and told no one. The best part of the day was when the mummers came in all wigged and masked, donkeys and kings and giants, singing and stomping and clashing their wooden swords. They hardly looked like the villagers I know, although I recognized Sim by his enormous feet and John Atwood by his red hair, which poked right through his Father Christmas wig. Spoke John. In come I, old Father Christmas, welcome or welcome not. I hope old Father Christmas will never be forgot. And the play began, with knights and dragons and battles and the wondrous rebirth of St. George. Perkin was St. George. Here come I, St. George. I am called St. George, for St. George is my name. And he looked golden and beautiful like a saint, and not much like a goat boy, even when his golden wig fell off and Brutus ate it. The dragon he battled was fearsome, and bellowed so convincingly that I forgot it was but paper and wood and gears from the mill. I am the iron dragon which no sword can undo. I eat the small, the pure, the young, and spit their bones at you. It was gruesome and ugly and will give me nightmares. Perfect. 7th day of January, feast of St. Lucian of Antioch, leader of the Lucianists. I had not a nightmare last night, but a dream. Again, my Uncle George came to rescue me from a dragon. The dragon threw at George a handful of dirt, which turned into a bolt of lightning, and George died at my feet. Has the curse then worked? Is George in danger? What does it mean? 8th day of January, Plough Monday and feast of St. Nathalin, farmer. Today, the villagers celebrated what would have been the first day of work since before Christmas, if they weren't celebrating instead. I walked down to the churchyard and watched the village boys dancing and fooling. I wonder which is the day when ladies dance and fool. 9th day of January, feast of St. Fillan, ancient Irish abbot whose bell and staff and arms still survive. Now that Christmas is over, we are putting the manor to rights again. Morwenna made me help the kitchen boys dig out the pits and bones and dog droppings from the rushes on the hall floor. We found a silver gilt belt with jeweled buckle, 3 shoes, a lady's stocking, a wad of fake hair, a rat skeleton, and 2 silver pennies. I also found Ralph Emery's knife that he accused Walter of Pennington of stealing. Walter is going to the king to complain, and there may be a joust between them at the next tournament, though no one stole it after all. It fell into the rushes. Should I tell? I would dearly love to see that joust. This afternoon, we sprinkled dry mint and thyme and gillyflowers over the cleaned rushes. The hall smells much better, but that may be because Robert is not here today. 10th day of January, Feast of St. Paul of Thebes, the first hermit. He lived to be 113, and 2 lions dug his grave. A very special holiday. Robert has left. He took with him Brutus, my favorite of the pups, even though I cried and argued and thumped him on the chest with my fists. As they were riding out the gate, Brutus made water in Robert's lap, and now I have him back. I think the little creature is bruised and frightened, so he will sleep in my bed tonight. Morwenna and the eternal guest will just have to make room. Thomas leaves tomorrow. I will be sorry to see him go. 11th day of January. Feast of St. Hyginus, Pope and Martyr. The ice on the river has finally frozen hard enough to walk on. Perkin and Gerd, the miller's son, came to the kitchen for bones that they will polish and fasten to their shoes so they can glide on the ice. I begged my mother to be allowed to go, but she had a headache and would not speak of it. I made her a potion of peony root and oil of roses to soothe her head. Being angry, I wanted to add spurge and deadly hemlock to it, but mostly I love her, so I didn't. Instead, I thought to make a list of all the things girls are not allowed to do. Go on crusade, be horse trainers, be monks, laugh very loud, wear breeches, drink in alehouses, cut their hair, piss in the fire to make it hiss, wear nothing, be alone, get sunburn, run, marry whom they will, glide on the ice. 12th day of January, Feast of St. Benedict Biscop, who collected books. I have heard that a cloth merchant in Lincoln has a privy, not in the yard but inside his house, in a little room built out over a stream so that the stream washes the waste away. Such a wonder. I have it in my mind to go to Lincoln and see for myself. I would sit in the privy and piss and think about my water flying through the air, sailing on the stream to the river to the sea and across to wondrous foreign lands. If I cannot go to faraway places, I would like to think my water went. 13th day of January. Feast of St. Kentigern, called Mungo, grandson of a British prince. It appears the curse has worked. George returned last night from York to say that Alice had been married to the 7-year-old Duke of Warrington. After the ceremony, the Duke had an attack of putrid throat and had to go home to his mother to be nursed. His new wife remains at court. I am sorry that Alice was sold at auction to the highest bidder like a horse at a horse fair, but I am glad to have my Uncle George back. 14th day of January. Feast of St. Felix of Nola, tortured but not martyred. I tried to talk to George. He will not hear Alice's name. He will not speak it. He does not listen, will not play, and his eyes that once flashed mischief and joy now glow dark with pain. I thought to write a song about his doomed romance, but he said to save it for his betrothal to Ethelfreda, the very rich widow of a salt merchant from York. I asked him if he loved her. He said he loved her money, her business, and her good heart, and that was enough. I think my curse was cursed. Alice is gone from here, wedded to a baby. George sighs and suffered, and still he is not mine, but marries some fat Saxon widow. God's thumbs, I might have done better to fail. My guts are grumbling. I hope it is but a cold in my liver, but I fear it is guilt and remorse. 15th day of January, Feast of St. Ida, foster mother of the Irish saints. George is left for York again. My guts still grumble. 16th day of January, Feast of St. Henry, who became a hermit rather than marry. It is not so bad sometimes to have a pig for a father. This day it served me well. There were guests at dinner, but I had no forewarning of danger, so I acted like myself. Some good and some bad, like always. I told the story of the time Perkin and I dressed his smelliest goat in his granny's other shift and let it loose in the church while a visiting friar was preaching about the terrors of hell. The villagers in the church, convinced that the preacher had loosed the devil on them, stumbled over each other trying to escape the fiend. Perky's granny recognized her shift and started chasing the goat to get it back, swinging at him with a candlestick. The frightened goat loosed its bowels in the middle of the church, bawled frantically, and leapt into Perkin's lap. It was wondrous sport, but the story did not seem to amuse my listeners at dinner. We finished eating in quiet. Later, I discovered that one of the guests was another suitor, who was pleased with me and even my story, but so offended by my father's burping and farting and scratching his chest with his knife that any hopes for a marriage died. I shall never tell my father that I am grateful to him. 17th day of January, feast of St. Anthony of Egypt, gardener and mapmaker. A freeze. My ink froze and I had to thaw it over the fire so I could write. But now I have nothing to say. 18th day of January, feast of St. Ulfred, martyred for breaking up a statue of Thor with his axe. In the heart of winter, when we eat for weeks on end porridge and beans, eggs and wrinkled apples, salted meat and dried herring, I think I will never again see peaches and plums, fresh fish and parsley and leeks. I have painted into the mural on my chamber wall a tree bursting with fresh fruit, dripping its juice straight into the waiting mouth of a golden warrior mounted on a black stallion, with my face. The warrior, not the horse. 19th day of January, feast of Saints Marius, Martha, Artifacts, and Abachim, a family of Persians martyred while on pilgrimage to Rome. Much activity about the manor as lambing started at the same time as a snowstorm. The sheep have all been driven to the pen in our yard, and the pregnant ewes will be put in our barn. Many are dropping their lambs on the way, and the shepherds with the newborn lambs stuck in their shirts look like fat bishops. 20th day of January, feast of Saint Sebastian, who was shot with arrows, recovered, accused the emperor of cruelty, and then was clubbed to death. Edgar, the saddler's apprentice, is missing. He went outside to relieve his bladder in the middle of the night and never returned. William Stewart and the villagers searched for him today, but it has been snowing so hard since last morning that they have little hope of finding him. 21st day of January, St. Agnes's Day. Another virgin martyred rather than marry a heathen. I wonder what is so bad about heathens. They couldn't be worse than Robert. 22nd day of January, feast of St. Vincent of Saragossa, imprisoned, starved, racked, and roasted. I crept out last night hoping to help with the lambing. I am none too fond of sheep, for they are stupid and smelly and bad-tempered, but the new lambs are so soft and sweet. No one noticed me, so I sat wrapped in my cloak with lambs asleep in my lap and made a lambing song, which I misremember now, but I know it was good. 23rd day of January, feast of St. Emerentiana, foster sister of St. Agnes, stoned to death while praying at her tomb. Edgar was found. He lost his way back to his cottage in the storm and took shelter in an old shed, which was soon covered in drifting snow. By morning, the snow was too heavy for him to shift, so he stayed trapped under it these 4 days. This morning, one of the shepherds spied a stick that Edgar managed to force through the snow with a stocking tied on, and he was dug out. Thanks to God, he had not really gone to the privy, but was sneaking back to his cottage from our hen house with his shirt stuffed with eggs, so he had plenty to eat. 24th day of January, feast of St. Timothy, who was clubbed to death during the pagan festival of Catagogia. The only Latin we have for Perkin to learn to read from is documents and house accounts, so I made some simple stories in my best Latin and am teaching Perkin from them. He says he is certain a scholar has to be able to read more than Pater meus animalis est, or Non amo Robertum. I'm doing my best. 26th day of January, feast of St. Paula, a Roman widow who became a Christian, renounced all amusements, and went to visit the hermits in the Holy Land. Baron Ranulph will be back in 2 weeks' time, and Alice will be with him. Her new husband is still in his mother's care. George is still in York. My guts still grumble. It is still cold. 28th day of January, feast of St. John the Sage, an Irish philosopher who was stabbed to death by his students. Last night, we had sleeping in our hall 2 monks from the abbey on their way to Rome. God, it seems, told their abbot that he wants the remains of 2 Roman martyrs brought from Rome to a new home in the abbey church. Brother Norbert and Brother Berthold are going to Rome to find them. Rome is so far away that they will not return until harvest. I thought to go with them, but this morning when they left, the snow was so deep and the wind so fierce and the dark so very dark that I snuggled down into my quilt and decided to wait for an adventure on some warmer day. 29th day of January, feast of St. Julian the Hospitaller, who accidentally killed both his father and mother, and in his grief and remorse built a hospital for the poor, patron of innkeepers, boatmen, and travelers. Peppercorn the dog is possessed of a demon. She howls and moans, digging at her head, running through the hall, rubbing her face on the straw. Morwenna has made a charm which I wet with spit and tied about her head. The dog's, not Morwenna's. I pray the demon leaves Peppercorn without entering anyone else. 31st day of January, feast of St. Maddock of Ferns, who lived 7 years on barley bread and water. We have taken all the Christmas greens down. The hall looks so gloomy and bare. It is still cold, but thanks to God, Most of the lambs are still alive.